so if you share something consistently and you set yourself goals, I always find that helpful to kind
Yeah.
of retrospect, take that to mindful in a really tough market. And it's like, how do you stand out over other UXers?
Okay, so I'd like to welcome all of our listeners and viewers to another episode of the UX Online's podcast. And if you've been following us recently, we've been running this workshop series. So I've already had on Caleb Sponheim. He's been awesome. I've also been recording some others as well. And I'm really happy to get on Theo Johnson. Maybe your listeners have seen him on LinkedIn. He's got quite a name. He's got also a cool portfolio of companies he's worked for. So really stoked to have you on today. So yeah, thanks for running this workshop, Theo.
Yeah, Dale, thanks for having me, man. I'm really excited to be here and, help everybody kind of jumpstart their UX career. So,
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's obviously why I got you on, and that's the title of this workshop, Jumpstarting Your UX Career. I think it's something that most people, I would say, especially early on in your career, as the title would say, would suggest that it is hard to, I would say, get into UX now with all of the changes. I've noticed it since I've been transitioning career 4 or 5 years ago. And I think it's only getting harder. So I think resources like this are going to be super useful for people that do want to enter the UX field, but yeah, get that jump start and be successful early on in their career.
yeah, I think right now it's a really tough market. And it's like, how do you stand out over other UXers? What's the best practices and making sure that like you're staying up to date with your skill sets, your
Yeah.
communication, your networking, and just trying to be the best version of you. And at the same time, like, don't burn yourself out, because the mindfulness part is really huge. And like, a rejection is a rejection, right? I love kind
Yeah.
of following, Felix Lee, from ADP List. So guys, I do coaching on adplist.org as well. But Felix
Yeah.
is great to follow because he's doing all this stuff with ADP lists, and we're trying to create a better community for UX and just for the job space. But yeah,
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, no, Felix is actually someone who's been on the podcast as well, and yeah, he shares a lot of stuff for early career folk in UX. So yeah, hopefully this will be another resource that people can use that can give them that kickstart. And you briefly mentioned it as well, that this first part, so part one of this workshop, will be looking at building out your LinkedIn profile. So I'll let you kind of take the reins now in how you go about that, how you build your LinkedIn profile to be, I imagine, to be appealing to potential recruiters or hiring managers.
well, first I kind of want to do an introduction. So
Yeah, go ahead.
so I'm at Microsoft. I'm a senior UX researcher. So I got like around 5.5 to 6 years, working in tech, B2B. I worked at
Mhm.
Meyer groceries chain here in the Midwest. I'm from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm very heavy on the qualitative side. I do a lot of mixed methods work. I
Mm.
coach an ADP list. I run a giant YouTube page for bowling outside of
Oh,
my work. And again, as far as like the mentorship goes, right? So I usually coach on the weekends. And yeah, that's, I'm here to help, and I'm excited to kind of kick it forward. So,
yeah.
so the first part we're going to kind of talk about today is building your LinkedIn profile. I think,
Mhm.
if I get a lot of people that reach out on ADP lists, and just even local friends, even if they're not in the UX field, say, hey, Theo, I see you're doing career coaching. What's
Mm.
like my first step? I say, where's your LinkedIn, right? Like, do you have a LinkedIn? If they say
Mm.
no, I'm like, hey, get on that. Even if you're like a student and you're in school and like maybe you still have like you're a freshman, it doesn't matter. I really suggest that everybody gets a LinkedIn going right away,
Mm.
because LinkedIn is a really great way to kind of showcase that professional networking. You can meet
Yeah.
other for the UX field, right? You can meet other UXers. You can message them. You can ask hiring managers, right?
Mm.
Hey, I noticed you work in an X team. I really like this space. Do you maybe have like 15 to 20 minutes of your time to speak with me about your role? And a lot of times too, a lot of these managers, they're very 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 busy. Trust me, I get it. I
Mm.
get a lot of messages myself. Hey, Theo, do you have like an hour to talk? Well, please, I sent them my ADP list link. Please schedule some time with me to talk, a
Yeah.
little bit about your career and like what you're looking to do.
I
Now
think
when it
I
comes
was even one of those as well.
well, it's
That kind
okay. I
of-
mean, I try to do the best I can with the time that I have, because I do a lot
Yeah.
of things, outside of my job.
Mm.
But back to LinkedIn, right? So networking, job searching, professional branding, showcasing projects, having
Mm,
recommendations from former employers, or it could
yeah.
be anything. Like maybe you're coming
Mm,
in the UX field, maybe you worked at a bakery for like a family or something like that, and maybe you're like a designer or researcher, right? And it doesn't
mm,
matter. Like if you have maybe the manager that worked there be like, hey, can you please go to my LinkedIn? Please write a letter of recommendation for me. It doesn't matter. Like that
yeah.
recommendation can go a long way. Just showing that, hey, this person was great to work with. They're great with communication. They're very organized, etc. So I'd make sure everybody up front, kind of has that kind of thing set up. Um,
Yeah.
and again, so I don't know if you want me to just dive into maybe the key
Yeah.
components of like a great profile.
That would be awesome. Yeah. If we can, yeah, break that down for our listeners. So,
Okay, cool. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some of the key components of the LinkedIn profile. You can see up here, I got my headline, which you guys, if you're coming into the field, maybe you like for me, it's like you senior UX researcher, ADP list top percent, 1% mentor, AI B2B SaaS, right? So that just
mm-hmm.
shows this is Theo, I'm a researcher, I've done a lot of mentoring, etc. Other people can
Mm,
kind of see that, right? They get an idea of who I am. If you're
yeah.
someone that's coming into the field, maybe you would have maybe UX designer, looking for new
Mm,
opportunities, or if you're recently kind of let go from a company, same thing, UX
yeah.
researcher, right?
Mm,
Interested in new roles, just to
okay.
make sure that people can see that. And
Yeah.
the open to work thing, like if anybody here is looking for work, open to work is fine.
Yeah.
If you need to have that on there, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like I
Okay.
actually
Yeah.
suggest it if you're looking for work.
Okay. Okay. And in terms of your headline as well, I just had a question there. Like,
Sure.
because I've seen some that have really long ones and
Hmm.
it's full of all sorts, even like about their personality, things they like to do, even
Sure.
things they're passionate about. What's your advice on that? Like, should it be kind of short and just focus on where you've worked in the past, or if you're open for work or whatever? Or can you
I
include stuff about what you're passionate about?
Yeah, I mean, if you have something that's just going forever and ever, I mean, it might confuse like a hiring
Okay.
manager, or it might confuse someone who you are. I
Yeah.
like to keep it kind of short and concise. Like this is probably the longest I would go.
Okay.
And I mean
Yeah.
it's cool if you want to have a longer one, but for me, like when I work with my mentees, I kind of say, hey, short and concise.
Yeah.
Maybe your title, who you're aspiring to be. Like if you don't have a job yet, put the line here, the hyphen,
Mhm.
and then put um, I don't know, maybe you like a certain space. Maybe you're a VR guy, and maybe you're
Yeah.
getting your PhD, right, or doing VR, like
Yeah.
VR enthusiast, right? So that kind of
Sure.
shows who you are.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. Awesome. Okay.
And then, from here, right? So we have the portfolio, which goes right to my portfolio. Guys,
Hmm.
really recommend make sure your link is right there at the top.
Yeah.
So, and you go down to the about section. So the about section, you know, you need to tell a quick story about who you are, your skills, your passions, and your achievements. So for me,
Mm,
when I first kind of created LinkedIn, I had this long thing, and then I was like, oh man, I worked with my mentor, and it's like, let's shorten that. Let's really tighten that up. Tell the
okay.
story of Theo in a really quick, kind of summary.
Yeah.
So having a
Yeah.
nice summary for your LinkedIn is important. So me,
Mhm.
charismatic senior UX researcher, 5 years, B2B tech academia, proven track record of leading generative and evaluative research and improving user experiences.
Mm,
Right. So that
yeah.
kind of tells a little bit about my background, and then here talks about my education, how I help next generation of UX professionals.
Mhm.
Sometimes too, like I don't have it here. Like if you guys want, it's okay to have skills in this section
Yeah.
too. Maybe list out maybe you're really good at storyboarding and like wireframing, and maybe you're a designer and you have like a
Mhm.
special skill set in Figma. You could put that there. That's totally fine. I just for myself, I have all my skills kind of in the skills section.
Okay. Awesome.
And then also your top skills, right? So
Mm,
this too, because if there's a headhunter that's looking at your profile and they're like, I want this specific person who does this specific type of work, and maybe there's a specific
mm,
skill they're looking for. If you could showcase your top skills from your LinkedIn
yeah.
profile, that's a big one.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, that will bring the attention to obviously what you're good at.
correct. And then down here, the featured section. So for me, it's like people know me from ADP lists, right? So I have a link here to
Mm,
go directly to my ADP list profile, in case they want to get mentored. And then, of
mhm.
course, the direct access to that resume, right? So
Okay.
having that resume right up front, right here is huge.
Mm,
So you can,
yeah.
in your featured section, you can add, links, you can add,
Mm,
stuff that you've done at conferences, etc. Anything that you want to showcase and help you stand out over other UXers, take advantage of this featured section. For me,
okay.
I just got this ADP list, my
Mm,
resume, and then of course I have a workshop I did on silos of synergy, which was awesome. We're talking about breaking silos, and then
okay.
again another link to my portfolio. So that
Hmm.
kind of that double direction. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Okay.
and then the work, right? So I see different examples all over LinkedIn. So this might be
Mm,
something for you guys to kind of take a look at. So recently, I have like a resume, right? But I have everything bulleted
mm,
out resumes. So on LinkedIn, I recently decided, well, I'm just gonna take a quick summary of the stuff I've done.
mm,
Write paragraphs. This is like a quick little thing about who you are, right?
okay.
Driving impactful research for Microsoft, leading discovery
Mm,
research, usability testing and workshops, etc.
yeah.
Right. So I know like building the resume, that's a whole nother topic, right? But
Mm,
this just kind of showcases and tells a story about me and about
yeah.
anybody, right? So if you go on
Okay.
LinkedIn and you look at their jobs, if they have the jobs listed and they have no descriptions,
Mm,
I mean, yeah, it gives you that kind of, I wonder what they did there. But at the same
yeah.
time, because of the industry, right? Because of the
Mm,
targeted roles, there's various, like I've noticed a shift with UX, like a lot of recruiters and a lot of headhunters, right? They're looking for that specific person that's done this
yeah.
specific thing in this
Okay.
space. If you have that up front and you're showing that on your LinkedIn profile, that
Mm,
might help you land a role over someone who just has the role but no description, right?
yeah. Okay. Okay.
Discoverability.
So also you mentioned something about your resume as well.
Mhm.
So it shouldn't just be a copy and paste of your resume descriptions, let's say. It should be like worded differently. It should be more of a paragraph more about you. Whereas your resume generally, well, in my case, I would say, is more just bullet point kind of action items of what you did.
Yeah,
Did I understand that correctly?
yeah, so I mean, I'm not saying, and there's no right or wrong. This is where
Okay.
the swimming in the ocean comes into play with, people think about other people's methods. So
Mm,
honestly, like, yeah, it's okay to have those bullet points to match the resume sometimes.
okay.
Having that matching does show some clarity back and forth. But
Mm,
for me,
okay.
I just took my resume, my bullet points, and then I created summaries pretty much for each different role that I had in a paragraph, a quick
Hmm.
paragraph. That way, it's just, I don't know, easier on the eyes, and it just
Sure.
kind of tells a little bit of a story from like
Okay.
that kind of perspective compared to just listing a bunch of bullets.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just for me. It might be a design thing. I don't know. Like that's just how I have it. But yeah,
Hmm.
if you guys want to do, bullet points directly related to your resume and tailor that, that is fine. That does show consistency. But for
Okay.
me, this is just how I portray my LinkedIn profile.
Sure. Okay. Awesome.
So of course we got education, right? So all you new grads out there, anybody in college right now, like, hey, if you're doing cool stuff, like show it here, like,
Yeah.
when I was at Oswego, I did a
Hmm.
lot of great stuff, working in doing stuff with AR and VR. I got a scholarship award, right? And
Mm,
then I was able to kind of show, all the different stuff that I did. I went to Corning, I got my associates, blah, 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 blah. I got all the stuff, UX Design Institute, etc.
mm,
So in the education, it's just nice, guys. If you have achievements or any projects you want to
yeah.
show on there that you can tag into this, do it.
Hmm.
It shows that you
Yeah.
took the extra step, you worked hard, and it helped you
Yeah.
stand out over other students.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So next part here, just kind of licenses and certifications. I mean, you guys, there's a lot of great stuff out there, as far as like where to go. Like you can do Google
Mm,
certifications now. I did some Agile certifications when I was at Meyer. And of
hmm.
course, user Zoom, right? So like, there's a lot of stuff you can do with licenses and certifications.
Okay.
Um, Projects. So projects is interesting. I feel that you could always directly link some of these projects to your portfolio as well. That's if maybe you wanted to
Yeah.
showcase something. A lot of the stuff that's on here for me, like when it says projects, it's more of like some of the stuff that I did that was like academia related. VR work, the AR work, and then of course
Yeah.
anything that maybe I did at like a conference. I went to the Global Game Jam, right?
Okay.
So companies want to see that you took the extra step. So
Yeah.
I would always go out and try to participate in seminars, try to learn more and do things. This was a great way
Hmm.
of kind of showing that you did that, in the project
Okay.
section.
And here you can drop links as well to
Correct.
external, I don't know, case studies or presentations.
Correct. Right. And
Okay.
like even here, like I did this study in 2016. I did some biometric EEG brainwave stuff, and I thought it was
Wow.
super fascinating, right? And I just kind of talk
Mm,
about it, right? It just shows you could be kind of vast and give a variety of, kind of the stuff
yeah,
that you've been doing throughout your career.
absolutely.
So the skill section, you guys obviously pop skills in there, So when
Mm,
they when there's a role opens up, and the LinkedIn, I think how their AI generated stuff, right? It shows, oh, maybe you're
yeah.
a top 1%, 5% person for this role. Well, they're going to look at
Mm,
one, your jobs, they're going to look at, your skills. So
yeah.
find the skills that are kind of related to industry that you have that would be a good fit, right? And
Yeah.
pop them in here. But of course, make sure you can do those skills too, right? So it's important
Mm,
that you're showcasing who you are. Um,
mm,
skills can be anything from the communication, the
yeah.
teamwork, the ideating for UX design, the
Mm,
user research methods that you've done in research, right? Um,
yeah.
could be maybe you're maybe you're a senior level, right? Like me, and you're doing like
Mm,
some stuff representing the leadership. You're doing a lot of storytelling. Showcase that in your skill section. That's very important.
okay.
And we talked about recommendations. Like recommendations are huge. You
Mm,
know, whoever you've worked with, right? You kind of go in and like have people kind of, it's like, hey, I had a really great time working with you. Would it be okay for you to write a recommendation? And there's been
mhm,
times where people just write recommendations and I see them and you're like, oh, wow,
yeah.
cool. And you accept them. This
Yeah.
is a great way, guys, of showcasing that partnership, past relationships, people you've worked with, and letting,
Mm,
recruiters and companies know that you're easygoing, and also that you're a go-getter and that you're one of the top people for one of the roles that you're applying.
yeah. Yeah. Also, it shows whoever's like looking at your portfolio, your profile, that they can trust that you've done all these things as well. Because obviously, you could put anything
Mhm.
on your LinkedIn profile, but if they see those recommendations, so okay, yeah, so he did work with so and so, and I can read what they said about him or her. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then, so this obviously, right? Not everyone's going to have publications, but if
Hmm.
I work with a lot of academias who want to kind of shift into
Okay.
UXR, and that's a great topic. I know there's been a lot of great, podcasts on that as well.
Mm,
Showcasing your publications on your LinkedIn, huge.
mm,
Um, maybe who you're collaborating with, what are the other authors too? It's nice that LinkedIn kind of
mhm,
offers the ability to kind of do this. So
yeah.
I have a lot of publications in like UX with gaming research and AR, but I'm able to
Okay.
also tag other authors in here and then also show the publication, right? So the IEEE,
Yeah.
I got a chance to go to Ireland, present it, do a bunch of VR conferencing. Cool. Let's show that.
Mm,
Like where is the publication? Can I see
yeah.
it, right? So having that up front is super important,
Yeah.
as well from the publication side. And yeah, I mean, the bottom part here, the courses and honors and awards, always important,
Mhm,
right?
yeah.
Let's say that even if you're getting a certificate, or maybe you like, did the UX Design Institute, which by the way, guys, that's a great, jump starting way to kind of go into UX is the UX Design Institute based in Ireland.
Ah, okay.
You can kind of put, your methods or what you did here, like what classes. For me, I just put,
Mm,
but then I also, this was way back when I was in college, but it's like I wanted, people to know some of the, courses I was taking, stuff that was
yeah.
related to UX. I mean, they're on here. It shows that I have the curriculum, that I did
Hmm.
that, and that I was passionate, and of course, honors and awards. So kind of related to
Okay.
those projects, but again, just nice to have.
Yeah. No. Kind of fleshes out your achievements or what you can show. Yep.
Yep. And of course, if you're on any organizations, Interaction Design Foundation. So I'm on
Mhm.
there. But yeah,
Awesome.
and I mean, this is all great, bells and whistles, guys. But there is also, let me stop sharing here. Oh, that was stop cam. Huh, there we go.
There we
There
go.
we go. So there's a couple things too, to kind of look out for, right? So yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
We have all these bells and whistles. We can do all these things, but what are the common mistakes, right?
Mm.
So that's something that I kind of want to touch on as well. So
Mhm.
generic summaries,
Yeah.
kind of overuse of maybe AI and building templates, and like I get
Mm.
it. Like there's a lot of great use of AI right now to kind of kind of jumpstart your UX career as far as like, LinkedIn, building your portfolio, etc. But make
Yeah.
sure like what you're saying is who you are, right? Like
Yeah.
telling your story, because generic summaries, even from the job descriptions, from who you are, um, it's not going to tell that compelling story of
Yeah.
you and how you made an impact and a difference, right?
Hmm.
For me,
Yeah.
that's something I feel like everyone needs to really look out for, and just making sure that
Mm.
they're telling the story of who they are, because that's
Yeah.
important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think AI in these cases is good for if you're stuck with how to start it off or just ideas. It's good to kind of get that onto paper, onto virtual paper. But then, yeah, I think it's important, as you say, to make sure that your voice comes through, because also recruiters and hiring managers will be able to see the difference between what's your voice and what's AI generated. So I think it's a good advice what you're suggesting there.
Yeah, and then of course, like overloading your skills without context. So like
Mm,
that also goes in for like building resumes, guys. So if you just say, I ran research on this platform.
yeah.
Well, okay, how many people did you work with? What process did you have? What method did
Mm,
you use? Was there impact? Is there any numbers that you can show? Like, did you save money? Was there any sort of, I working in this,
yeah.
I was able to kind of, save 20% time with users'
Yeah.
engagements or whatever, so I'm just coming up with ideas here, but it's
Mm,
nice if you can gather metrics of any sort of way that you created impact. That's going to be more impactful than just
mm,
having your skills without the context of your skills. That goes
absolutely.
back to the storytelling. And when we get into the portfolio thing, when I show that, I could show you
Mm,
guys a little bit about that as well. Um,
awesome. Yeah.
and
Cool. And that will
then
be part two.
part two,
Okay.
yep, part two will be the portfolio, and like best practices for portfolio building. And guys, that's going to
Mm,
be a great section here to take a peek at.
yeah.
So
Really looking
the
forward to
third
that.
thing I just want to quickly bring up is neglecting activity, kind of
Okay.
not engaging. Like I know social media, it's a bugger, LinkedIn. But if you want to get engaged, and I'll be honest with you, I've been so busy with my job, and we got a lot of stuff at the end of the year here. I've just been making sure I'm very, very focused on doing good
Mm,
work, and
yeah.
then stuff outside of work, I'm not posting a whole bunch. But if you're trying to get active, trying to build your LinkedIn profile, and you're trying to be out
Mm,
there, hey, share links, be retrospective about things that you've
yeah.
learned in the industry, connect with other UXers, right? That's going
Yeah.
to be huge. If you just build a LinkedIn profile and do nothing with it, you don't post anything. Unfortunately, yeah, algorithms, man, they're brutal,
Yeah.
and but I'm telling you, it's like if LinkedIn sees that you're posting some fruitful content and you get continuous interactions,
Mm,
right? So maybe set some goals for yourself, guys. It's like, okay, so maybe Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'll make one post on LinkedIn, maybe retrospective of stuff that I've learned. Maybe
mm,
you're in college and you're working on some projects. Hey, I worked on this project. This is like some insights that I kind of learned, as I jumped into the
mm,
UX industry or the UX space in college. And
yeah.
then, so if you share something consistently and you set yourself goals, I always find that
Mm,
helpful to kind of
yeah.
retrospect, take that to mindfulness, making sure that you're being nice to yourself, but like setting your own goals to kind of,
Mm,
push yourself to stand out a little bit more, and then tell that story, but not doing it in a way where you're just like sporadically posting. Because the guys I'm telling you, social
yeah.
media, it can get you. So don't get
It's true.
too into the whole I need to post. No, there's no need. There's no need.
Mm,
There's a want, and you do
yeah.
it when you can do it, and be respectful to
Yeah.
yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I completely agree with that. So being consistent. So that's what I've taken from what you've said. Be consistent, and also something I learned. So my mentor in the day, he mentioned the same thing as you did. So to post, even if you're working on a project, share that. You might not get much interaction, especially at the beginning, but you'll notice that will grow once the algorithm picks it up. That you are starting to get interaction, and that will help grow your network as well. So it's a good way to connect with other people in your same position as well, but also gives you access to potential connections that one day might end up being your colleagues or hiring managers. So yeah, good
Correct.
advice.
Yeah. So
Cool. So is that a wrap for for part one?
that is a wrap for part one. I really hope everybody, enjoyed. I know I was just showing my profile, but hey, it's like
Yeah,
I worked with some of the best in the industry to build that. And I want people
yeah,
to understand like those are some great practices to kind of, jumpstart kind of your LinkedIn profile,
Yeah.
making sure everything is there, telling your story,
Yes.
and making sure that everything's easy to access, because hire managers, less clicks is better. So
Exactly. No, it's been awesome to go through that with you, and thanks for sharing that advice as well. As you mentioned, you've got that from some of the leaders in the industry. So thanks for sharing that with our listeners and also with myself as well. It's been an eye-opening episode. So thanks, Theo. And looking forward to part 2, where we'll be looking at case studies and how, well, just to understand what hiring managers are looking for in a case study as well. That's going to be super interesting.
that sounds good. Thanks, Dale.